Good morning. They've changed my app completely. So I created a whole new intro and there's a whole new process and there's 4 clicks to get to the point where I'm not muted and my camera's on. It's a whole pain, but it's all good. It's all good. I hope you like the intro. Took me the entire day. Oh, all right, my friends. Good morning. Happy Wednesday. Happy on planniest day of the week. We're going to talk about Solomon and his ladies this morning. All right. June 5th. Solomon's many wives. 1 Kings 11, 1 through 13. Now King Solomon loved many foreign women. Besides Pharaoh's daughters, he married women from Moab, Ammon, Edom, Sidon, and from among the Hittites. The Lord had clearly instructed the people of Israel, "You must not marry them because they will turn your hearts to their gods." Yet Solomon insisted on loving them anyway. He had 700 wives of royal birth and 300 concubines, and in fact, they did turn his heart away from the Lord. In Solomon's old age, they turned his heart to worship other gods instead of being completely faithful to the Lord, his God, and his father David, as his father David had been. Solomon worshipped Ashtoreth. It always surprises me every single time I get to this section, and I'm like, after everything we've read about Solomon, and then we get to this section and he's worshiping Ashtoreth. I'm always surprised by that. Solomon worshipped Ashtoreth, the god of the Sidonians, and Moloch, the detestable god of the Ammonites. In this way, Solomon did what was evil in the Lord's sight. He refused to follow the Lord completely, as his father David had done. On the Mount of Olives, east of Jerusalem, he even built a pagan shrine for Chemosh, the detestable god of Moab, and another for Moloch, the detestable god of the Ammonites. Solomon built such shrines for all of his foreign wives to use for burning incense and sacrificing to their gods. The Lord was very angry with Solomon, for his heart had turned away from the Lord, the God of Israel, who had appeared to him twice. He had warned Solomon specifically about worshiping other gods, but Solomon did not listen to the Lord's command. So now the Lord said to him, "Since you have not kept my covenant and have disobeyed my decrees, I will surely tear the kingdom away from you and give it to one of your servants. But for the sake of your father David, I will not do this while you are still alive. I will take the kingdom away from your son. And even so, I will not take away the entire kingdom. I will let him be king of one tribe, and for the sake of my servant David, and for the sake of Jerusalem, my city." Solomon's enemies. 1 Kings 11, 14 through 25. Then the Lord raised up Hadad the Edomite, a member of Edom's royal family, to be Solomon's adversary. Years before, David had defeated Edom. Joab, his army commander, had stayed to bury some of the Israelite soldiers who had died in battle. While there, they killed every male in Edom. Joab and the army of Israel had stayed there for 6 months, killing them. But Hadad and a few of his father's royal officials escaped and headed for Egypt. Hadad was just a boy at the time. They set out from Midian and went to Paran, where others joined them. Then they traveled to Egypt and went to Pharaoh, who gave them a home, food, and some land. Pharaoh grew very fond of Hadad, and he gave him his wife's sister in marriage, the sister of Queen Taphanes. She bore him a son named Genubath. Taphanes raised him in Pharaoh's palace among Pharaoh's own sons. When the news reached Hadad in Egypt that David and his commander Joab were both dead, he said to Pharaoh, "Let me return to my own country." "Why?" Pharaoh asked him. What do you lack here that makes you want to go home?" "Nothing," he replied, "but even so, please let me return home." God also raised up Rezin, son of Eliada, of Solomon's adversary, as Solomon's adversary. Rezin had fled from his master, King Hadadezer of Zobah, and had become the leader of the gang of rebels. After David conquered Hadadezer, Rezin and his men fled to Damascus, where he became king. Rezin was Israel's bitter adversary for the rest of Solomon's reign, and he made trouble, just as Hadad did. Rezin hated Israel intensely and continued to reign in Aram. Jeroboam rebels against Solomon. 1 Kings 11:26-40. Another rebel leader was Jeroboam, son of Nebat, one of Solomon's own officials. He came from the town of Zeradah in Ephraim, and his mother was Zeruiah, a widow. This is a story behind his rebellion. Solomon was rebuilding the supporting terraces and repairing the walls of the city of his father David. Jeroboam was a very capable young man, and when Solomon saw how industrious he was, he put him in charge of the labor force from the tribes of Ephraim and Manasseh, the descendants of Joseph. One day, as Jeroboam was leaving Jerusalem, the prophet Ahijah from Shiloh met him along the way. Ahijah was wearing a new cloak. The two of them were alone in a field, and Ahijah took hold of the new cloak he was wearing and tore it into 12 pieces. Then he said to Jeroboam, "Take 10 of these pieces, for this is what the Lord, the God of Israel, says. I am about to tear the kingdom from the hand of Solomon, and I will give 10 of the tribes to you. But I will leave him one tribe for the sake of my servant David and for the sake of Jerusalem, which I have chosen out of all the tribes of Israel. For Solomon has abandoned me and worshipped Ashtoreth, the goddess of the Sidonians, Chemosh, the god of Moab, and Moloch, the god of the Ammonites. He has not followed my ways and done what is pleasing in my sight. He has not obeyed my decrees and regulations as David his father did. But I will not take the entire kingdom from Solomon at this time, for the sake of my servant David, the one whom I chose and who obeyed my commands and decrees. I will keep Solomon as leader for the rest of his life. But I will take the kingdom away from his son and give 10 of the tribes to you. His son will have one tribe, so that the descendants of David, my servant, will continue to reign. Shining like a lamp in Jerusalem, the city I have chosen to be shining like a lamp in Jerusalem, the city I have chosen to be a place for my name. And I will place you on the throne of Israel, and you will rule over all that your heart desires. If you listen to what I tell you and follow my ways and do whatever I consider to be right, if you obey my decrees and commands, as my servant David did, then I will always be with you. I will establish an enduring dynasty for you as I did for David, and I will give Israel to you. Because of Solomon's sin, I will punish the descendants of David, though not forever. Solomon tried to kill Jeroboam, but he fled to King Shishak of Egypt and stayed there until Solomon died. Summary of Solomon's reign, 1 Kings 11:41-43, 930 BC. The rest of the events in Solomon's reign, including all the deeds and his wisdom, are recorded in the book of the Acts of Solomon. Solomon ruled in Jerusalem over all of Israel for 40 years. When he died, he was buried in the city of David, named for his father. Then his son Rehoboam became the next king. 2 Chronicles 9:29-31. The rest of the events in Solomon's reign from beginning to end are recorded in the record of Nathan the prophet, the prophecy of Ahijah from Shiloh, and also in the visions of Iddo the seer concerning Jeroboam, son of Nebat. Solomon ruled in Jerusalem over all of Israel for 40 years. When he died, he was buried in the city of David, named for his father. Then his son Rehoboam became the next king. Ecclesiastes may have been Solomon's last book, written near the end of his life. Now, I like to preface this book by saying, I used to read this book and think that, wow, things really are depressing. But I read once that this was written from a perspective of a man who was deeply depressed and was going through struggles, and from the perspective of someone who is really in a pit and not necessarily speaking. He was speaking the truth of what he was going through, but not necessarily speaking the reality of things. Like the first section is titled, "Everything is Meaningless." All right, Ecclesiastes 1:1-11. These are the words of the teacher, King David's son, who ruled in Jerusalem. Everything is meaningless, says the teacher, completely meaningless. What do people get for all their hard work under the sun? Generations come and generations go, but earth never changes. The sun rises and the sun sets, then hurries around to rise again. The wind blows south and then turns north. Around and around it goes, blowing in circles. Rivers run into the sea, but the sea is never full. Then the water returns again to the rivers and flows out again to the sea. Everything is wearisome beyond description. No matter how much we see, we are never satisfied. No matter how much we hear, we are not content. History merely repeats itself. It has all been done before. Nothing under the sun is truly new, if that's not the truth. Sometimes people say, here is something new, but actually it is old. Nothing is truly new. We don't remember what happened in the past, and in future generations, no one will remember what we are doing now. Okay, how's that make you feel? Happy Wednesday! All right. Let's move on to Breaking Free from Body Shame by Jess Connolly. We've moved on to chapter 3. We're on page 45. All right, I'm going to read about half of this first section. Okay. Renaming what the world has labeled less than. Confession. I own too many domains, as in website domains. So do I. A few years ago, I figured out that if I had a good idea for a business, a book, or a ministry, I should absolutely buy the domain, or at least see if it's available before I take a step further. The problem is, sometimes I forget about the idea, and then I end up paying $11.99 a year to hold the domain name. For example, one time I bought the website iworkwithmodels.com because a bunch of my coworkers came into work wearing really cute outfits, and I thought maybe I'd start a fashion blog where I showcase their cute styles. I still own the website, but have not gotten around to doing anything with it. Part of my work with Go and Tell Gals, the organization I run, is helping women step into their God-given call to coach others. A few nights ago, I was working with a group of said coaches, and I had a website idea, coachesareworthit.com. We could start a whole marketing campaign around why it's so great to work with a coach. I went to buy it and discovered it was already taken. Who else would buy coachesareworthit.com? I went to another website where I could investigate the ownership of said domain and found something hilarious. I am the owner. I'd already bought it. I love naming things. I love picking names for websites, for businesses, for babies. If you need a kid or a book named, I'm your girl. Let's get a whiteboard and a Bible and a thesaurus and go to town. For this reason, my children love to hear stories of how they were named. Elias, I can't read. Elias was a name gifted to us by a family we admired. They had 2 grown daughters. We were having our first son, and they had always wished they could use the name Elias. Benjamin, our third child and second son, was named Benjamin after we heard one of our favorite preachers explain why he'd named his son Benjamin. It means son of my right hand. And we never wanted Benjamin to feel second or third, but rather near and close and important to us. Cannon, our baby, who is now 7, was perhaps the easiest to name of all of our children. I had a difficult pregnancy involving complications in bed rest. One time, in the middle of a really stressful ultrasound, I just said the name Cannon Connolly aloud, and it just came, and it was the rock we needed to stand on, a hope to see him face to face. Gloriana Eloise is our second-born child and first daughter. Her name tells a story of heartache and hope. She was originally going to be Talitha Catherine Connolly, Tally Kate, or Talitha Kate. My husband and I bickered over the pronunciation of Talitha, but it's an Aramaic word used in Mark 5 when Jesus raises a little girl from the dead. He says, Talitha koum, which means little girl, get up. I've loved this account from Mark ever since I was a new follower of Jesus, and I'd always planned to name my daughter Talitha. And then came her 22-week ultrasound. I knew in my gut she was a girl, but the wand and the gel on the screen confirmed it. The ultrasound technician measured and measured and measured with her head cocked slightly to the left as if something wasn't quite correct. We were told our baby looked a little small, but not to worry. They'd run a few extra tests and get back to us. Glory's story is long and beautiful and redemptive, and I'd love to tell you the whole thing another time. But to sum it up, a week later, we were faced with the potential of losing our beautiful baby girl for the first of many times. My husband, Nick, and I prayed. Our family prayed. The community rallied around us and prayed. And in the midst of that time, I knew I couldn't name her Talitha. Maybe I didn't have enough faith. I'm not sure. But I knew I couldn't name her after a story where Jesus raised a little girl from the dead if that wasn't going to be her story. We decided to then call her Gloriana, meaning glory born, because she surely would be one way or the other. A few weeks later, more tests were run, and in one shocking phone call, we were told that we had a healthy baby. It was almost jarring to drop our concern for her than it was to pick it up in the first place, but we moved forward in gratitude. The name Gloriana stayed. I'm also a renamer, and I have no shame about that. I've personally gone from Jessica to Jessie to Jesse with an E to Jesse with an I to Jess over the span of 36 years. My name changing with age and life season, always becoming a little bit more of who God has made me to be, always trying to step into that with more intention. I often say that there are people who call me Jessie because it's familiar and familial. This means they knew me before we started churches or wrote books. But there are also people who call me Jessie with an I, and it feels very heavy, like they're suggesting that they know who I really am because they know who I used to be. It feels as if they're calling me Jessie because they don't want me to grow. We changed our old business name twice. Once because we wanted to, and once because we had to. We changed the name of our church from Gospel Community to Bright City. We felt like Gospel Community was who we were, but Bright City was who God was asking us to be. In the biblical narrative, renaming was far more common than it is now, and I appreciate that. Abram and Sarai became Abraham and Sarah, agreeing with their new names that they would no longer be barren, but the mother and father of generations. Jacob became Israel, and in so doing, he went from identifying as a trickster to someone who honestly wrestles with and acknowledges the Lord's power in his life. Simon was renamed Peter, which means rock, by Jesus, a name that carried weight and position in the new church of early believers, especially poignant to remember the name was given to him though Jesus knew Peter would betray him. He told Peter, "On this rock I will build my church," Matthew 16:18, giving him a new position and a new responsibility. Saul became Paul, marking a life transition that saw him shift from persecutor of Christians to the man who would write the bulk of the New Testament. Of course, not all names are created equal. These are all examples of names that were bestowed on the recipient with great love, names that were carefully considered and selected to speak significance over a person's life. Lesser names are spoken over us all the time with no such intention, labels, accusations, and nicknames. While some are designated to lift us up, others are designed to drag us down. And I want you to hear me on this. The truth is, we get to choose which names we agree with. There is a wildly beautiful power in giving a soul the option to agree or disagree with the label, description, projection, or perception of worth a name gives them. I'm not advocating that we all run to the Social Security office and give ourselves new legal names, but we've been given the opportunity to pause and ask, do I consent to the meaning of my name? Do I agree with the weight of the nicknames I've attributed to me or that I've accepted from others? Am I actively participating in naming things, other people, myself, in a life giving way? And of course, we should all ask, what name have we given our bodies? Do you call your body great, weird, awkward? Have you named yourself as strong, weak, unique, basic? In the past, have you ascribed to yourself the label of pale, short, curvy, messy? These are more than just labels or descriptions, especially when we hold on to them and live under them as if they're the truth. We treat these words as if they're no big deal, but we know that names are absolutely important. So let's treat them as such. I love this book. I can relate to her in so many ways. So many ways. All right. Good morning, ladies. We went to orthopedic doctor yesterday, only took off pillow on sling, start physical therapy to just move up to elbow. Then in 6 weeks, we'll probably start with the shoulder. Doctor did say this would take 3 months or more to repair the tear in tendon. Unfortunately, I'm going to have carpal tunnel surgery. I can't talk. Tunnel surgery on both wrists. I know God will give me the strength. Yes, he will. He will. But Susan, seriously, if you can go through shoulder surgery, you can go through anything. It is a tough surgery. It's a tough recovery. It's a long recovery, but it is worth it. I mean, for 3 years, I couldn't lift my arm above this before my surgery. And now this shoulder is wonderful. This had a complete tendon cut that like it was torn. But they completely cut the tendon and cleaned everything out and repaired the tendon. So this is a complete repair. This one was just a clean out, and I still struggle with this one. I think there's more going on in it. But this one, although it looks as though it's hard to move, that is because I did Pearls Push 25 yesterday, and all my muscles from my belly button up are sore. So I can really move it well, just not today. Right. In other words, God isn't declaring everything meaningless. The writer was going through something. Yes, and that's exactly what I mean, Cindy. Thank you for saying that in a much better way than I could, because it's true. I think sometimes I used to read Ecclesiastes and think, wow, is this really what God is saying? That everything is meaningless and hopeless and there's no point in life, and that's not what God was saying. That's what the writer was saying because of what he was going through. Tracy said, could I ask for prayer for my uncle who lives with me? He got a phone call from his doctor last night, found out he has prostate cancer, and he's not a believer. Absolutely, Tracy. Absolutely. Mallory says, please whisper a prayer for my sister Vicky. She goes in for back surgery tomorrow in Texas, and no one is with her. They are removing a cyst and fusing a vertebrae. Absolutely. I have a friend who needs a kidney transplant, and hospice has stepped in. Prayers are needed. His name is Truman. His liver. Okay. Yes, for sure. For sure. I had a friend who I have not had a chance this morning to check in on the status, but was notified about 24 hours ago that he is a young man in his 30s that I grew up with their family, and his brother, Chris, died at 12 years old from a heart condition in gym class. He just passed away. And because of that, this young man, his brother Sam, was checked and found out he had the same heart condition. So they were able to, they didn't know it about Chris, and so they knew it about Sam. And so for years, he's been taken care of and watched and treated. And he's 36 and needs a new heart and has been in the hospital for 55 days in Boston, and was notified yesterday, or maybe the night before, that there was a heart available. And so last night at 5:00, he was going in for heart transplant. I have not been able to check yet this morning to see anything, updates, status. I don't know any of it. So pray for Sam as well, and his wife Michaela, and his parents and brothers and sisters. And all right, let's go ahead and pray this morning. God, our Father, we thank you. We thank you for this opportunity to come to you. We thank you for the wisdom in the word this morning. We thank you for that for me, the knowledge that Solomon, as wise as he was, as loved as he was, and as amazing of a king as he was, he still faltered and he still struggled, just like his father David did. And he still made other idols. And God, I think it's just such a reminder to all of us that it's normal for us to have struggles. It's normal for us to have weaknesses. It's normal for kings, and it's normal for us. And but we are called to turn to you. We are called to turn back to you and rely on you and lean into you. And God, I just thank you for the reminders of that today in your word. I thank you for this book. I thank you for Jess and the wisdom that she puts out in this book, and the reminders of that our bodies are good. They may not be health wise where we want them, where we need them. They are things that we need to focus on to improve our health. But at the core of it, they are loved, they are good, and we shouldn't name them with things. And I have named my body terrible things over the years, God, and I ask forgiveness for that. And I pray for your strength for that, to name my body good and to not assign it labels that it does not that are not honoring to you. God, I lift up these prayer requests to you today. I think of this. I think of Susan with her shoulder and now carpal tunnel surgery. And God, I just pray for strength for her and for healing for her as she goes through the process of recovery with her shoulder, that you'll just give her strength and give her good healing. We pray for Truman. And we pray for this cancer that is plaguing. I may have the names confused, but I pray for both of these prayer requests, for prostate cancer, for the liver transplant, both very difficult and devastating situations, God. And I pray for their salvation. I pray for faith in you. I pray for trust in you. And I pray for your hope to cover them. And I pray for your healing for both of them. And I pray for their family as they walk by their side through these difficult situations. God, I also lift up Mallory's sister, Vicky, as she walks through back surgery and how difficult that is. And I just pray for wisdom for the doctors, for a steady hand, and that you would just provide quick healing there and strength. God, we also lift up Sam to you today for after his surgery. I just pray that it all went well, and that you would bring perfect healing to Sam and his new heart, and that the process will go as smoothly as possible. And I pray for strength for his family as well. God, we just thank you. We honor you today. I pray that everything we do and say today will be a blessing to you, and that everything we put into our mouths today will honor you, remind us of whose we are, and that we are expected to take care of these temples that you've given us, God. And I just pray that you will help us to do that today. In your precious name I pray. Amen. I tend to get a little tongue-tied and forgetful when I get to prayer requests. Who has what concerns and issues, and I hope I got them all, but God knows them all, and I'm grateful for that. All right, my friends, I have to go up into the attic and get down the Ninja Creami because I forgot to get it out last night. And I was considering plugging it in outside on the deck to run it, because it's going to wake up my entire household. That thing is so loud, but I'll try it inside. And if it wakes up Tilson, then we'll know not to do it inside in the mornings. But I'm going to go get that down, and we are going to make chocolate covered strawberry blizzards this morning, because who doesn't love a blizzard for breakfast? Blizzard. Well, I don't know. Are we allowed to call them blizzards? Probably not. Or we'll call them thunderstorms. We'll make thunderstorms this morning. I don't know what else to call it. Windstorms, hurricanes, tornado. It says chocolate covered strawberry tornado. Like, I don't know what to call it. Are we allowed to call it a blizzard? Is that legal? All right, you guys, I love you so much. I'm going to probably do the affogato on Friday. Tomorrow, I don't think I'll be going live because I'll be doing devotions, but then I have to go to Winston-Salem tomorrow because I'm being interviewed for a cable a cable TV show, which is just hysterical. I can't wait. It's so much fun. I can't wait. So I got to go do that tomorrow. So I won't be going live tomorrow morning. But I will. A Blizzy. That's a great name, Cindy. A Blizzy. So I'll probably do the affogato on Friday. Hopefully that is my goal. All right, guys. I hope you'll join me to make blizzies this morning. And if not,